Part 1. How I even found out about this game. Flashback to early 2021, when I was slightly less miserable wearing a mask for 10 hours a day in school, out of school, and during all my commuting hours on a train with 4 sad essential workers. One of the first stores I ever left the shelter of my house to face the great outdoors was a GameStop in May of 2020. It was for that special edition of Final Fantasy VII Remake. That theme of avoiding busy places meant I was always hitting my nearest video game stores, and at the time, I had at least 8 stores that weren't just a standard GameStop within a 40-minute radius in every direction. I was super lucky. Anyhow, that was the year I finally got car insurance, and that meant the BBGB was mine to take, and take I did. Often one of my friends would hop off the train with me and we'd go game hunting. She was into weird stuff like Puyo Puyo or Klonoa, stuff like that. And as we scanned our little brown eyeballs across that game wall and into the singular expensive glass case, I saw it. $99.99 for a PS2 copy of ObsCure. Literally had no idea what it was, but it was obvious to me that it was a survival horror game with the way that the ghosty was on the cover. The bottom of the cover also said Sum 41 music was in it, so I mean, how could I say no to such a class act? By then, game prices were skyrocketing, but a lot of stores weren't on the price gouging craze yet, so I looked it up on eBay and my girl Mercari, and I saw the game was more like 200 plus. Granted, my copy I bought be a little janky, so no manual and a reprinted cover. But hey, the disc is real, it works, and the case may be a bit funky. There's like a Lord of the Rings sticker ripped off the front. It's also not a genuine late PS2 cycle case, the one that's supposed to have like no memory card. But whatever, this is just me justifying needing more games. So I scooped the game up, regretting it once I got to the car and saw like 10 cents in my bank account without having bought dinner yet, but even today, that's the norm. When we ended up back at her house that night, we sat in her garage with a 32-inch plasma propped up on a workout bench. There was like garage sale stuff choking us out, but we had Cokes in our hands and we were smack-talking her ex-boyfriend just as the opening cutscene started. After the cutscene played out, we sat there with our mouths half open as Kenny started walking around the big open gym. I hit a bunch of random buttons to figure out what everything did, and Kenny made his way to the locker room. See, being art students, we were always fixated on the atmosphere and visuals, loving style over realism. The entire locker room, in both sights and sounds, had such a vibe. The colors are so muted, and they stay that way throughout the entire game, which is actually a plus to me. I really like painting with muted colors. Much later on, the sound effects and music direction really makes itself known, but at this point in my experience with the game, I was just about standing still in the locker room in awe, because how did they make this scene so convincing in its appearance? His feet patter a little even. I remember her saying, "Did we literally just find the best looking game on PS2? I agreed then, and I agree now. Sort of. But before I jump to why I really think the PC version is the way to go, I want to say that with her, I only got about 20 minutes in and died before I could save. What I had played really made me want to get into it more, but I'm terrible about playing through my stuff completely, something I really want to change with the start of this YouTube channel. I showed my cousin maybe a month or 2 later, and he was into it, but also only got 20 minutes in before we started playing Shrek Treasure Hunt and Mulan on PS1. Classy faux show. And so, in January of 2024, I got his little booty over to my place, so we could finally put this game to rest. But only after fighting for our lives with a broken capture card and a funky PS2 fat that had tumbled down the stairs a few hours prior. His HDMI adapter totally ate it down the steps to my place. Sorry, bestie. Part 2. Why I chose the PC port. Definitely not $99.99 anymore. The shipping will kill you if you go Euro, but if you do have a modded system or a free McBoot card, you can try getting a repro. Okay, this price is a little more reasonable, but it's still a bit much. It's definitely nicer looking in-game, and if you want legit physical, this is the way to go. Keep in mind it is not backwards compatible with Xbox One and Series X. So on Steam, this game is by far the most inexpensive. It's an even sweeter deal if you buy it with the Aftermath, which I have not yet played, but it's in the collection on 2 systems because I'm a hoarder. As much as I hate to say it, the PS2 is home to a lot of bad ports, and ObsCure is definitely a lot more muddy and dull on the system. You've been watching footage of the enhanced PC port of the OG Xbox ObsCure, and its near flawless 2005 graphics that I would say are up there with Capcom's Haunting Ground in my eyes. What's not up there with Capcom are the character models. They're a little crusty looking in the faces, especially. Like, not obsessed with that. In-game, it isn't a big deal. They move fine and look convincing. In cutscenes, the main characters fare better, but side characters don't get the same treatment. Part 3. My short stint with the sound effects and music. It's very atmospheric. Definitely got something going on here. And I like how the sound amplifies as you interact with things. This goes hard. It reminds me of something like Rule of Rose, but maybe not as groovy as that soundtrack can be. This is iconic, mostly because I remember one of my friends doing karaoke to In Too Deep, doing a voice impression and everything during our time as art camp counselors. But also because it sets the tone really well, and the characters and their goofy lines of dialogue fly right out of somewhere between 2001 and 2005.
What are you doing here?
Nothing, dog. I'm just editing my notes. If you want, I can do the same for you for only 50
Hey,
bucks.
stop clowning around.
The voice actors for the main cast, notably Tara Platt as Ashley, seem to either hit really well or dip into a strange direction. It doesn't really bother me, because when it hits well. The side characters are again sort of fickle. They sound a little too dramatic. But I am a little surprised that I never noticed much in regards to monster noises. Maybe a little screech here or there, but the music tended to overpower them. Part 4. Gameplay and why this game really needs to be experienced with two peeps. So the camera angles are fixed and I love them for that. Every area looks great, and it doesn't necessarily feel like tank controls until you randomly start walking crooked, because the stick direction gets messed up. It didn't happen in fights, so I was good with that. At some point, though, you can't really see what you're fighting, and you just start aiming and shooting at random. The worst experience I had was the woods fight or flight section. It took my cousin and I so long to get through it because it was dark, on top of enemies being not easy to spot. Oh, and yeah, playing with my cousin was the way to go. When I played it on PS2 years ago, they made it pretty easy to switch between main and second character, and they have an RE4-like call, wait, attack kind of feature, but it's so much easier to just yell for my cousin to save my beans. I will say, though, it is nice that this isn't something like RE6 in Ada's campaign, where the second player they shoehorn in can't even open a door. Player 2 is fully functional. The camera, however, does not snap to them, so they can get lost on camera and potentially die if you're not careful. But this was actually helpful sometimes, especially if you use Kenny for his speed, because you can zoom past enemies and then have your player 2 stand near a door so that you can evade a situation entirely. And let's face it, there's been a comeback in couch co-op gaming, but it's been more beat-em-ups than anything else. And if you want a game that's gonna scratch that pre-PS3 era horror, this is one of the better ones. Part 5. Character growth, puzzles, and special mode. This game doesn't do much in terms of story. What it does do is mostly delivered in cutscenes, notes, or slideshows in the theater. The characters don't have any major growth, and when I got the good ending, meaning all characters live, I was happy with the way that the characters animated. Their body language clearly expressed how elated they were, but there wasn't any dialogue, which was a little surprising. I guess in a crazy situation like this, it'd be more realistic to keep quiet and just embrace, but that all goes to crap when they set up a random teaser for part 2. There's no major growth for anyone. You find out enough about why the monsters are there, and you understand the big bad's motivations, but it's nothing mind-blowing. And you know what? I'm okay with that. There's lots to do and to go replay in this game. There's so many random places I never went back to that I randomly picked up keys for, and I hope that one day I can. But we'll see given the state of my backlog. The characters all play so differently, so that's just one reason I want to go in again. The horror puzzle aspect is a fun part of it too. It's not difficult in any way, honestly, which I was good with for sure, but there was one area with a plank of wood and an elevator that I fought for 10 minutes with. Mostly the puzzles are, find said object for a locked door that's a room or two over and bring it back. Or the classic, find a VHS or some kind of way to play a video and get a code. It wasn't monotonous though, I liked it. and it made me feel like I was chilling in a certified horror game like I love doing for whatever reason. Once you finish the game, you unlock a new mode called Special Mode, and I haven't played it, but from what I've looked up, all your characters are in new costumes, and you start with a slightly stronger bat. And the first pistol you find has a laser, and it's a bit better as well. As for the ending count, there are just 2. One good, one bad. You get one by saving all 5 characters, and one for losing someone. Standard stuff here. I could go on, but I'm not really the type to go into gameplay mechanics, and I feel like at this point, how many more times can I say I think this game looks pretty and feels cozy? So I'm going to end it here and possibly hope that you, dear viewer, will also give this game a try. It's got a small dedicated fan base, and I'm hoping more people will get in on it over time. I've definitely joined the fans of ObsCure. Anyway, thanks for watching, and catch me next time jumping genre ships entirely into Persona 3 Reload. I'm praying it lives up to my expectations.